I'm casting my first big piece. You can see I have put in my flanges all the way around. I'm making this out of foam core board. Same kind of board you might use for a high school project or whatever, but it works really well. It's got paper on two sides, foam in the middle, and it's light, easy to work with, but it's stiff enough where it really works well. So, making the flanges all the way around. To show you right here, all the way around. So on my mold, these will be the flanges. I have gone in to the edge here and put plastiline all along the edge to seal it and get a nice clean cut, a real sharp cut there. You'll also see I've got these keys that I put on as well. Basically that's just another blob of plastiline clay, and then you take a razor blade and you cut it off into a pyramid shape. Gives you a nice crisp corners, and those will key into the other piece here. There's gonna be another piece on the other side. So once I get done molding, laying up this part of the mold, of course all this gets torn off, and that'll leave this indentation. And then when I mold the piece on the back, it will mold right into that indentation and ensure that I've got an exact sort of match between the two pieces, and the mold will come together. Quite a few pieces on this mold. It's kind of a complicated shape, and it's taking a lot more work than I expected it to be. So here's my hot glue gun. It comes in different wattages, anywhere from 20 watts up to about 100 watts before you get into more expensive ones. I bought a 100 watt one over a 60 watt one. It was like $6 more, so I thought it'd be well worth it, particularly since I'm going to be using a lot of hot glue to put these flanges on. Here's how you make one of the alignment keys. You can see I've got one over here already. Just take a blob of plastiline clay, or whatever clay you've got, or if you've got some wax as well, and just push that right in. You got to push it a little hard just so it adheres and it doesn't come off. Then just take a simple razor blade and make nice cuts. You want to make them sort of shallow cuts. You can see I'm doing a lot of angle there. Okay? And just go around all four sides. Again, kind of a shallow angle cut, just like that. Again, shallow angle cut. And that way you make sure you've got a positive draft on the sides of this, and it's going to release okay. One helpful hint is to make these cuts at a very shallow angle. And that's because when you pull your flange off and you see the back side of this key on your mold, this clay will be much easier to clean out than this will. This one has steep angles. I mean, this will still work, but you're going to have more difficulty pulling that clay out. The gel coat has now been applied. The next step after that is to put in your fillets. You can either use a fairing compound or just regular epoxy with a thickener like Cabocel. That's what I've done here. So you can see I've gone in. The tan areas is where I've come in with epoxy and Cabocel, which is a thickener for the epoxy. And basically what you want to do is you want to put nice round sort of circumferences around all the sharp edges of the mold. And the reason you do this is to add a lot of strength to your mold, but also fabric, or in this case I'm using chopped strand mat, doesn't like to conform to sharp corners. So you put the fillets so it gives a sort of a rounded contour for the fiberglass to adhere to. You see I've done it all the way around. Any place that I had a sharp corner, there is some of the Cabocel epoxy mixture, including my snorkels down here, where I put the little bits of straw with clay in the middle. And again, that's a place where I can use compressed air to drive into the middle of the mold and force the the two pieces apart between the mold and the panel back there. Once you pull off the foam core, this is the flange that's left on the mold. You can see the alignment key is right here. It still has the clay in it. This is what you'll see. And then once you clean that clay out, you get this. So I've cleaned the clay out, and now we've got an alignment key. So now when I mold this next section of the body mold, the gel coat and fiberglass are going to go into that alignment key and lock these two flanges together in perfect alignment. So as I fab up each section of the mold, I'm taking a very close look at the flanges to ensure things are going right on the side you can't see. So as you're looking along here, you can see my key came out really well. I've actually gone over the flange and sanded it somewhat to take off some of the spots that were sticking out. You don't want anything that has a sort of a grip on it from the behind, so when you put the next mold up against this, it doesn't lock the two together so you can't get them apart. So I sanded this off. This is a rough edge. It happened to be where two of my foam core pieces that molded this flange came together. But you can see I still have some places like this that I'm worried about, so I'm just going to come in, fill that with body filler. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to ensure they don't interlock. Same thing down here. I've got some spaces right in here I need to fill. And going down. But it's a good way to check the health because you can't see what's going on the other side. Here's some more examples. You can see I didn't quite get enough of the gel coat up here, but it's fine. The main thing I was concerned about was down in this area. I don't know if you can see this, but right in here, there we are. This is a really tight corner on the opposite side. And when I put my fillet material in there, I didn't push it in quite far enough. You can see there's a gap here. So there's an air gap. And you can see once I put it in here and just kind of started poking around, the gel coat just flaked away. So there's no structure under that. So I'm going to fill that area again with some body filler, stuff it in there really good, and I should be okay. It happened up here as well, right in this area. You can see there's a void. So take care of that now. And the rest of it looked pretty good. Coming around to the rear here of this is where the tail lights go. There is a lot of rough stuff in here, all around here. And that is where I put the fillet material on this side. And I was trying to accelerate it by putting on the fillet material not too long after the gel coat had hardened. And when I say hardened, it had been applied 3 or 4 hours prior. It wasn't sticky, it was hard to the touch, but it hadn't fully cured. So one of the characteristics of putting fillet material or fiberglass behind gel coat is that it can cause this bunching or a rippling effect. So you can see it's right where I put my fillet material. So what I learned from that is I have to let that gel coat cure thoroughly, like overnight, before I apply the fillet material. And this was a thick coat of gel coat that on here is as thick as I could make it, 2 coats. So it wasn't because it was too thin. So that was one problem I saw here. And I'm guessing when I pull this mold off, I'm going to see this same problem on the inside of the mold. Every place I have fillets around the edges, I can deal with it then. It's just a matter of some body work. It's some more work, but it's better to find out this now before I do this to other panels as well and have a problem throughout the car. So a little diagnosis now can save you a lot of trouble later. When I first started making my molds, I was being very fastidious about making sure there was no place for the gel coat to leak underneath my dams for these flanges, and it was taking a lot of time. So what I've started doing now is not being quite so careful. I mean, if there's a big gap, I'll fill it, but for little gaps, I don't. But once I do pull the dam off and see the flange that's left here, it's much easier, much faster not to plug all those little holes with clay or with wax, and just go in with a simple chisel and just clip it just like that, and then it pulls right away. It takes so much less time. So here's the finished snorkel. Once you've covered it with gel coat, it sort of holds it in place to work with it more. The next step after that is to use your fillet material to build up sort of a volcano-looking shape around the snorkel. And then you can it's in there solid after that. You can just fiberglass over it at will. It's not going to come out. Of course, once the mold actually cures, just take your oscillating saw and cut the head off. And that's what it looks like. Well, I've got the first portion of the mold finished. All in all, in the end, there'll be a back part of the body, which is a separate piece that lifts up. And the front piece is all one piece, except for a couple little access panels here. So I'm ready to pull this off. I've already drilled holes in here, so I can put the parts back together. There's a lot of interchangeable parts here. And it's ready to come off. Let's give it a whack. How about some percussive love? Well, let's see if we can get this off. I'll try my air hose. See if this works. I am going to use a combination of a chisel. It has a nice sharp point to get down in there, and a bunch of wedges that I've got. So we'll use that. And that's coming right apart. That is coming right apart. Whoa! There we go. First piece. For the tail light. Hope you can see that there's my little alignment keys. That's going to help it all go back together. More exact. Now, of course, your bolts will put it together very, very close, but these alignment keys give you a much more exact alignment when you put the interlocking molds back together. Well, the video cut off. The video cut off on me again while I was taking off the other side. It came off very, very easily. So I thought I would just start on the next side and show you how this one went. I've already got this back piece off back here, so I'm at the same place I left off. So let's dive into it. I've already given it some percussive love. It just wants to come apart. I swear, it just wants to come apart. All those worries about a mold not coming apart, I've had some nightmares about this, but this is coming apart actually much more easily than I ever would have guessed. Look at that. Well, I gotta tell you, that came out really good. There's a few little places here. Yeah, there's a few little places on this one where I'm going to have to do a little bit of body work, just some filling in. Got some gaps. Just minor gaps, but really just minor body work then. But really, a very good result. And here's my last mold. These are the eyebrow pieces that will fit over the front suspension. It's a trim piece, you'll see at the very end. But I finished them up, did the body work, and just simply mount them on a piece of foam core board, and that's how I'm going to make the mold. So here's what filleting looks like. You just use your paddle, or a nice rounded tip. You go around the edges, so you don't have any hard, sharp right angles in there. And that helps the fiberglass coming next to it here, because it just doesn't like to go into those sharp angles. But what you also do when you're applying it by paddle is, you can see it's a little sloppy, and there are little ridges on here, if you can see. And that's just counterproductive. That's going to make the fiberglass hard to put on and to roll out. So simply take a little paper towel and just wipe it down. Now, that's going to be much easier for the fiberglass to adhere to. There are a lot of curves and bulbous shapes on this body that make it difficult to mold. And that is why you end up with all these pieces. That's how many pieces you need to break it up into to take a full mold. All in all, it's 15 interlocking mold pieces. So let's just take a little view here. Here's a side. And this is the inside armrest that interlocks with it. Up here we've got the front section along with the top cowl and the bottom cowl. This piece in the middle here are the eyebrow trim pieces that are going to go over the front control arms. And then likewise on the other side, back here we've got a side piece, an upper back piece, and a lower back piece, and of course the matching on the other side. And on the back of each of these sides, we've got a little crescent-shaped piece that molds the tail light fixture. And here are all those mold pieces now assembled. It kind of looks like the chrysalis coating on a cocoon. That'll one day become a beautiful butterfly. Yeah, I think I've been spending too much time in the garage smelling those polyester fumes.